Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Welcome back to the podcast, and today my guest is Eric Prose with the law office of Eric J. Prose. Eric, welcome.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So, obviously, you're an attorney. Tell us kind of what made you decide to get into law?
Yeah, unlike a lot of my colleagues or former classmates, I don't come from a bloodline of attorneys or anyone in the family that did anything like that. Unfortunately, my desire to become an attorney stemmed from a family tragedy. Our family was a victim of workplace violence, and we lost an immediate family member. As I grew older and understood what happened a little bit more, I understood the legal roadblocks that my family encountered. So that kind of inspired and energized me to dive deeper and figure out what ways could this have been avoided? Were there other ways that these lawyers that declined helping our family could have helped? Mm-hmm. So I haven't gone into that field. My legal education and my interests have spawned me into the business world, but that's originally what energized me to become an attorney.
So what were you doing before you opened up your own law practice?
Yeah, so I worked at a couple of LA-based law firms, insurance defense firms. So I put in the hours like most early on associates do, discovery motions, the dreaded insurance reports to the insurance companies. So I did all of that, and one firm allowed me to, I moved from insurance defense and did a little bit of family law for a bit, and they also allowed me to do business formation, which is where my interest was, and business representation. Shortly after that, I was kind of tasked with bringing the clients into that firm. And the face of that firm, I broke off on my own. I was putting in all the work that a solo practitioner would. So I thought, why not reap the benefits of that? So it was a little bit insurance defense and family law, and then down the line into my own business stuff, which I enjoy the practice of law a lot more, doing the things I'm interested in.
No, that's great. I mean, what's the saying? If you enjoy what you do for work, you don't have a job.
Exactly. You don't work a day in your life.
Right. Exactly. So, obviously, you feel some success from being able to go out on your own and stuff like that, and you help many businesses get formed. So can you, tell us some of the mistakes that these people that are setting up businesses are making?
Yeah, and the biggest mistake is not putting things in writing. Say, for example, you're going to start a business with your best friend. You've known your best friend for 10, 15 years. You don't think money would ever create an issue in that friendship, but then the business starts to become successful, and one wants to do one thing, expand the business in one direction, and you want to go the other way. That causes rifts in that friendship and business partnership. So I've seen numerous friendships and businesses fail because of this indecisiveness on the business owner's parts, where that could have been avoided if they have an LLC, if they had their operating agreement and their buy-sell agreement drafted in place before starting this company. A lot of our clients go ahead and form their company with the state and get their EIN number from the federal government without any documentation showing how this business is going to be run or how the processes are going to be governed. So that's the biggest mistake. And that can be parlayed into, the sale of goods and services. If you're not getting these contracts in place, which a lot of goods and services contracts are statutorily governed. So you have to have them in place, or your recovery is very limited if there's a breach of those. So the number one mistake I see amongst clients coming in with already formed businesses is not having anything in place, not having the writing of how this is going to be in place. Now, in California, operating agreements don't have to be written. They would default to the corporation's code. Don't do that. That is a huge mistake. Right. Have it in writing.
So explain within the operating agreement what is it that's actually in the operating agreement that makes it so important?
Yeah, so there's various parts. You know, it's gonna show your equity in the company. It's gonna show your initial capital contribution, how much money or how much sweat equity you put into the company to build it where it is. It's also going to give you how this company is going to be run. If a decision has to be made, how is that going to happen? If you have two 50-50 partners, it's a good idea to have a tiebreaker, a neutral third party that doesn't have equity in the company that can come in and help make that decision. Now, if you have two partners with differing percentages, 151%, 149, and the 51% is the manager or has control over it, that helps. And that is all written into those agreements. So each party knows how this company and how decisions will be made from the outset.
Okay.
Also in those agreements are, you know, limitations or how transfer of equity or stock will take place. So, you know, we just handled a case where one of the LLC members wanted to leave. Well, how does that happen? If it's not in writing, we have to default to the code, which creates some issues. They luckily had an operating agreement. We didn't write it, but they did have an operating agreement. So it's very simple to work with opposing counsel on how this is going to happen. So those are some of the things that are in operating agreements. There's a lot that goes into them, but I just wanted to give you a few of the big headlines on that.
Right, right. I mean, I always think that's, I mean, it's funny because just like you're saying, you know, if people come in to you, clients come in and they don't have all of this. And you're right, I always try to tell people, it's like, it's much better to plan. And yes, you think that you're saving a couple bucks by not doing this. And it's really on the back end, it's costing you a lot. And I'm sure that you probably have story after story that this has happened and what happens and the cost that there is involved on the back end if you don't do this ahead of time.
Absolutely. I mean, we had a client come to us just before the pandemic hit, late 2019, wanted to form an LLC with two other partners. It was for real estate and decided against it because it was a cost at the outset that they didn't want to incur. They wanted to put that money into flipping the house, renovations. Okay, well, the pandemic hit a few months later and their partnership or the business started to break down because of disagreements within it. Now it turns into litigation at that point. Now the cost is even higher. And we usually tell people that pass on formation documentation that, look, if you don't do this now, this is going to cost you more in the long run, whether it's with us or another law firm. So that's one example. I mean, no one expected the pandemic to hit. They didn't expect the pandemic to hit. And they didn't end up coming back to us for the dissolution of that company, but they went to a close colleague of mine, and they are paying a lot more than they would have if they just had everything documented at the beginning. So, you know, penny wise, pound foolish, I guess is the saying on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that even, you know, more examples of that is, you know, you and I are in business together, and I pass away, and if we don't have that operating agreement, what happens then?
Exactly. You know, another one is you get married. You're not married at the formation of that company. You get married. Should there be documentation signed by your spouse? Because if you do pass, then that, you know, depending on what state you're in or the intestate laws or what you have in place, your spouse would get those. Is that something you want? You guys, that all needs to be comprehended at the beginning. A lot of times with our clients that are coming in for this type of work, with all of our clients, we send a incorporation questionnaire, about 8 to 10 pages. Give us everything you want, and here's all the options for these buy-sells, disassociation, retirement, disability, death, marriage. We want to know everything. And a lot of times that, you know, that spawns into a longer conversation with our clients to explain the benefits or the disadvantages of having these provisions in your agreement. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's a perfect example.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people are in such a rush when they first are starting out, like you said, oh, best friends for 10 years, we're never going to fight about anything. It happens. Or even, you know, in the case of, and I've seen it where in the case that one of the partners passes away and now their wife is you know, has inherited their piece of it or whatever. And now you're in business with their spouse. And it's just like, okay, well, that spouse doesn't have the intellectual know-how that that their other spouse had to be able to do this. So now, you're paying the spouse, but now you got to go out and hire somebody to do the job so it's like besides the dissolution, everything else, that's other ways that this can get pretty darn expensive.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you touched on a little bit about the contracts for goods and services and things like that. So let's just say somebody, incorporates properly, gets all the proper paperwork and everything else. They start doing business. How many times have you had to dealing with somebody that didn't have a contract for services?
All the time. Actually, just had a call yesterday with a potential client. They're in the tech space, and they did some services for a company to code their website and to code the app. No written contract. My next question is, were these discussions in email? Because we can make a contract out of email. And a lot of people don't realize that, but we can. No, over text message. Well, that's an issue here in California. You can't form contracts over text messages. So, it's a common issue. Oh no, they'll always pay us. They're a good friend or they're referral. Well, that doesn't always happen. Also, for one big example is contractors. A lot of people don't know this, but it has to be in writing in California law. Their contractor agreements have to be in writing. And if they're not, like I said, you're limited to your potential recovery. So it really comes down to, did you retain the right counsel to negotiate to get you the money that you deserve before filing a lawsuit? It's a common issue. Once again, people are trying to save money. But if you want to have a successful business, you need to put the work in at the beginning and have all of this established. I mean, if you have the right counsel, if you have the right team behind you, CPAs, we will work with these companies. And I don't want to speak for you, but I know we work hand in hand with CPAs sometimes to make sure that these companies are operating properly. The CPAs work with us, we work with them. Any kind of issue with money, tax, we push off to the CPAs. That's not our table.
Right.
But these business owners need to realize that, like I said, put the time in at the beginning, and then you can focus on operating the company, and your professionals behind you will focus on keeping the company in the right state. So we'll focus on legal, CPAs on financial, and so forth.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to bring up something you're probably going to cringe when I say it, but what about legal? What about like a LegalZoom or one of those online, legal websites?
Yeah, I think LegalZoom and those other online platforms have their place. I think they can educate business owners and give them an idea of what to expect. But I want people to understand is that these documents that they're getting from these companies are boilerplate.
Right.
They ask you specific questions, state of incorporation, things like that. They have good bones to them, but work with private attorneys and we will cater those agreements to everything you want. So we've had numerous people come in with those operating agreements and now they're at the point of dissolution. Sometimes that creates issues because they don't even know what they signed. They don't know what they agreed to. They just got it. They're like, oh, it's a legal document. So I think LegalZoom and those other sites have their place. But it's best, and I am biased because I am a private practice attorney, but consult with a private practice attorney and see if that is going to work with your company. And I think that's the best pointers I can go out there. They are very cost efficient, but like I said, spend the money at the beginning and make sure this company is set up properly.
I think one of the other things that's important to say, because I kind of feel the same way about those online tax services, is as these people are using them, they don't know what they don't know. And, you or I, if we're interviewing somebody to help them, me doing taxes, you doing the legal work, we're asking them the questions that they're not thinking about. And I know I've had people call me wanting free advice over the phone as they're trying to do their TurboTax stuff. And it's just like, they're like, they don't even understand the question that's being asked. And it's like, and that's a problem because they're kind of guessing, at that point, and obviously they could guess wrong and hurt them in the long run.
Absolutely. I mean, we had one client that passed on our services and went to LegalZoom. I told him before he left, if you have questions on the LegalZoom stuff, which I know you will, come back to us.
Right.
And we were a resource for him. He ended up abandoning the operating agreement that LegalZoom gave him because he ended up having 4 partners, which he wasn't contemplating at the beginning. And those were questions we were asking him while he was getting his operating agreement together with LegalZoom. So, has its place, but a second opinion is always a good idea.
Right. So what are some other reasons why somebody should use a professional like you when they're getting their business going?
Like you said, they don't know what they don't know. We're not a tax firm. We don't give tax advice. We give general tax advice, and this is how you'll be taxed, but
right.
Seek out your CPA. So we can kind of point them in what would be the right move and right formation entity for their company. A lot of people think that a corporation is the way to go, or an LLC wins all, but people don't realize the intricacies of these. So coming to a private practice attorney and asking, or just listening really is the key. Listen to your professionals, listen to what we're trying to tell you. You may have a preconceived notion of where you want to go with this company, but after listening to us based on years of experience and yourself as well, we can point them in the right direction so that they have the right entity formation, they have the right tax structure as you would advise them. So these are things, just listen to the professionals, ask questions, but then also listen, because lawyers like hearing themselves talk. So we'll spill more information to potential clients and clients regarding these entities based on our experience. And if they just listen to that, they'll be set on the right path.
Yeah, I think it's important also that you're talking about the different legal structures and things like that. There's certain things that are better, I know from a tax standpoint, are better in a C corporation than an LLC, than an S corp, and people don't get that. And then lots of times from the tax side, that sole member LLC, they're, yes, you have your legal protection, but from a tax standpoint, doesn't do a whole lot for you. And I think that's why it's important to make sure that you are working with a CPA and an attorney when you go to do this, even though you're going to be able to do all your own bookkeeping and everything else. You need to talk with someone that's going to be able to help you. And then I think so many people are afraid to let you and I talk, because it's like, oh my God, they're going to be billing me so much. And it's like, we really don't. And lots of times we're going to talk to each other just saying, hey, did you know this type thing, to make sure that they're taken care of. And we're not billing them for that stuff. So it's,
right.
I think the olden days of, everybody having meters on their phones and billing that way are long gone. I think that everybody now is looking a little bit more holistic about things, and making sure that the clients are taken care of.
Absolutely. And that's actually on my website. A few months ago, I just tossed up pricing for incorporation, and they're flat fee pricing. So
yeah,
based on how many members you have, what entity you're looking for, what entity we decide on as a team with your CPA, it's laid out for them. Now, of course, there's still billable work in the legal industry, but I think with incorporation, especially with the advancement of LegalZoom and Counsel and I think it's Counsel or Counsel, one of the two, those are flat fees.
Yeah.
So, you're paying a flat fee for those. So I think firms are noticing that, and now doing the flat fees for this typical transactional work. So yeah. I agree with you. I think that's the best way to go. And I jump on the phone with our company's CPAs all the time. I'm not billing for that. We want to make sure the company's
yep.
healthy. So that's what we're looking at, because an unhealthy company in the long run is no client for us. For us, right. The CPAs and everyone else. So we want to make sure the companies are healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I think even in your position where it's like, okay, yep, I help people get incorporated and kind of get them up and going. And then sometimes you may not deal with them again until the very end, when they sell the business or dissolve it or whatever. But I think it's important for people to know, you still need to talk to your attorney to let them know what's going on, because as you're making changes throughout the years, that can affect what happens on the very end.
Absolutely. And that's why, we push for our clients that are forming businesses, we have your flat fee for incorporation, we have your traditional hourly, and then we have what we call a covered services agreement. So it's a 1 monthly payment, depending, a lot of factors are taken into what that number is for all legal work. So excluding any expenses that may come up if we're filing with a state or if court comes up and we have filing fees, it's one fee. And a lot of clients ask, well, why would I choose that? Well, I always say, it's so you are not fearful of a billable hour, and you will come and ask us all the questions that we want you to ask us.
Right.
If you have a question regarding 2 words in a contract, ask us about it, please. Because as we talked about earlier, that's going to create a higher dollar amount down the line if it goes to litigation. So I think a few other firms are doing that. I'm not sure. I'm not really focused on their billing structures, but I know with our clients, especially clients that are looking for investors, covered service agreement is great because they can go to them and be like, well, here's my monthly expenditures. And legal is solid. It's not a question mark like it used to be with the black hole of billable hours that everyone used to do.
Yeah, I think the other thing that does is from the client standpoint is, okay, yes, I'm not worried about the bill, but you're almost encouraging them to call you because it's like, look, it's covered. So if you have any questions, and I tell my clients all the time, it's like, I would much rather hear from you during the year about questions that you have or things that you're getting ready to do, as compared to talking to me in March or April and saying, oh, well, we did this. And then I'm telling you, well, you should have done something different, which means you're paying a lot more in taxes. So
right.
I think it's the same thing with you. If they're not talking to you, it's going to cost them somewhere.
Right. And that's what we always tell them, this is the choice this fee structure is the way a lot of our business clients choose to go because it's an open door. Call us, email us, do whatever. Get in contact with us and make sure what you're doing is proper from the legal point of view. And we encourage that. Now they feel that we're part of the company with them. So, and that's what we want. Our firm is focused on the relationship aspect, not the transactional aspect. So we're not looking for each and every dollar. We want to build that relationship. So even if your company folds in a year or sells off, well, your next company might be us again. And that's what we want. You refer us out. I mean, we want this net of relationships, not this net of just dollars floating around. And if we were going for that, we would start an online service.
Right. I mean, I think it's important for people to understand. It's like, this is all teamwork, and you need to build your financial team or your team of professionals and have them collaborate together to make sure, especially for businesses, to make sure that you're staying healthy and you're growing. Many people, even small companies, don't have a board of directors. And it's like your board of directors, or you don't have to call it a board of directors, you can call it a board of advisors, and make sure that you have your attorney and your CPA on there. So then when things are going on, you can talk about it. I mean, and not all board of advisors or board of directors get paid. Sometimes it's just, hey, we do this because, and if they have the monthly agreement with you, you may throw that in as part of it. So I think it's important to make sure that the people stay in tune with that also.
Absolutely.
We've talked a little bit about the pandemic and things like that. What challenges have you seen or have you had because of that?
Yeah, I mean, starting from the beginning of the pandemic here in Los Angeles, we shut down pretty quick. Court shut down. If you were a non-essential worker, you weren't leaving. That created a lot of issues with our litigation clients. Cases that we thought would wrap up towards the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter of 2020, are not wrapped up. Now everything's delayed and pushed back. So we're kind of seeing more of a fallout now with the litigation. Now everything is jumbled. Everything is pushed into a few months span. So that's creating havoc on us. The other aspect we're having a hard time is what we discussed before, finding help. I'm having a hard time. One of my biggest challenges is finding good freelance attorneys to come in and work on various aspects of matters. So I'm trying to work with my law school colleagues of mine that have had freelance attorneys and try to solve that issue. But those two issues, the jumbledness of litigation, We're having cases pushed out to 2023 already. And not being able to find those reliable freelance attorneys, those are the biggest challenges that we're seeing stemmed from the pandemic.
That's it. So on the flip side, what has the pandemic, done for you that you thought, would never happen?
Yeah, I mean, it actually, when the lockdown first went into place, most of our clients' businesses were stalled as well. That hurts. Obviously, work stops for us, income stops for them. That's detrimental to anybody. Everyone can figure that out. But it actually gave me the time to refine my law firm and put new processes in. I redid my website to the one you're seeing nowadays.
Right.
I've been able to work with SEO companies and increase my visibility and everything like that. So I've been able to work on the firm where that has always been on my to-do list or my maybe someday list,
Right.
but work always got in the way. That gave me the time to sit down and really concentrate on that and increase the amount of content I'm putting out to help individuals. If you look on my website, it's a resource. There's blogs on there. There's directions to other websites that will help business owners. And then I have a lot of information regarding operating agreements, buy-sell agreements. So
Right.
it gave me that time to provide that content to potential clients or anyone just looking for some information. So the pandemic was tough income-wise for a lot of people. And I think if the people had the right state of mind during that time, they could have used it to their advantage.
Right.
So different ways, but the pandemic was both a curse and a blessing.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. All right. Our time has been flying by. What have I not asked you that you wish I had?
Oh, good question. Let's see. One thing would be, I guess if an attorney is debating going out on their own, they really have to love what they do. And I'm not just talking about the practice of law. I'm not just talking about entity formation. I'm talking about business development, networking, the running of a business, entrepreneurship. You have to love it all. You really have to dive in deep and make that a priority to achieve the goals that you want. So if you would have asked that, I would have dove in a little bit deeper earlier, but those are the things that I have a lot of people ask me, I'm going to start my own law firm. What should I do? What's the first step? And my first response is always, do you love what you do? Not the practice of law. Do you love spending time refining your processes and your people? And if the answer is no, I'm like, maybe you should stay at the firm because they'll handle all that. And that's going to all fall on you. It's, a lot of people think that working for yourself is, you can take vacation whenever you want. You get to set your schedule. Of course I get to set my schedule.
Right.
I may not start work until 10 a.m. one day, my actual billable work, but I'll be working for 3-4 hours on something else for the business. So you have to love it, love everything about it, and make it your desire to keep improving.
Yeah. I always laugh when people say, oh, you're your own boss and all this other stuff. It's like, no, not really, because before I started this, I had one boss. Now I have hundreds of bosses because everybody's coming at you from different directions and what they need. So yeah,
exactly.
I totally agree with you. It's many people start up a business because they're good at their specialty, their trade, and things like that, and they open up, I'm going to go open up a business, and then they find out it's not that easy, because besides going out and doing the marketing to get to get your work, then you have to bring the work in, you have to estimate everything, then you have to get the job done, then you have to deliver it, and all of that, and oh, by the way, now you have to account for everything, and you have to do collections, and you have to, I mean, it's a lot of work, that's for sure.
It's great, but it's a lot of work, and be prepared for those times where you're doubting yourself. I mean, I think every solo practitioner I know has doubted going out on their own at one point or another, but just keep pushing. It'll get better. If I can toss in one more thing regarding that, regarding the networking aspect, it's not about what you get out of networking when you do it. It's about what you can give to other people. And establishing that network of professionals, like we've been talking about throughout this, is huge. I don't know how many clients I've signed because I have a CPA referral for them that I know will get along with them, that I have a financial advisor that will help them after the sale of a company or a huge liquidation. So go out there and make these connections, give introductions to other people, and it will be returned to you, but don't focus on what you get out of it. Focus on what you're giving to other professionals. And that will be the best way to network.
Right. I agree with you. So Eric, it's been great talking with you. If our listeners, want to reach out to you, they want to check out your website and so forth, how is it that they can reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great being on this podcast as well. There's a few ways they can reach out. Website is ejplawoffice.com. You can also check me on YouTube. I have a bunch of informational videos on there. Just search my name, Eric Proos, Proos. You can also go to my Instagram page at EJP_law, and LinkedIn just by searching my name. And then if you want to do the old-fashioned way, phone, that's 213-784-3640.
All right. Thank you very much for today. It was great talking with you, and I think the listeners will definitely take a lot from the podcast today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gary. I really appreciate the time today.
So today my guest was Eric Proos with the law office of Eric J. Proos.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.